Today I am sharing what I make on several weekdays as a family of 6, being an ingredients family. I want to make foods that are hearty and wholesome, that fit the season, but that my whole family enjoys. From a pasta to soups to your basic meat and potatoes and veggie. So I hope you find some inspiration in some of these meals, and I'm going to share a recipe for you on my blog as well. So come along and let's make some food. So first things first, most delicious meals start with sautéings of onion and garlic. So I am making a delicious tuna casserole of all things. Some of you may call it a tuna hot dish, but this is something that is really simple and kind of a staple in our house. Probably once a month, I would say we make it. But I use onion and garlic to saute in some olive oil, throw in the cans of tuna, and I like to use an extra can of tuna because it has a little more protein. And then I put some roux in there with the flour and put in some milk and get that simmering. Of course, you gotta salt it really well. And I like to use Redmond real salt. And then I cooked up the noodles, and you can pick any type of noodle. These ones were some organic noodles I think I had gotten from Costco. I know I didn't make my noodles from scratch. I honestly never have, but noodles are something I do keep on hand for when we make pastas. And then I like to throw in peas, and it's just so simple and easy. And I had shredded some raw cheddar cheese, or raw smoked cheddar cheese, I guess I should say, that I got from Azure Standard. Any cheese would do, a yellow cheddar. You could probably even put a mozzarella if you wanted it creamier. Some people like to top it with like crushed crackers, but we don't have like Ritz type of crackers in our home. Some people put breadcrumbs on top, but this was still so delicious for our family, and the kids love it. And I served it with some roasted Brussels sprouts. So for the next day, we are still working on some garden potatoes that I had from our fall harvest, and so I'm scrubbing those up because we are having a pork roast with mashed potatoes and home canned green beans for this meal. So this is one I prepped during my kids' nap time. That's always a great time for me to get some meals prepped because it's just a focused time. Of course, the baby had to watch the water. He enjoys hearing that sound. And so then I made up a great seasoning for the pork roast, and it had just a punch of flavor with some smoked paprika, some yummy herbs in there. And the pork roast we got from a friend who butchered a pig. So it is a locally raised pork, which we enjoy supporting those local to us if possible, and getting some sources from local. If you can find that, I think that's the best way to go, to know how it's raised, to, of course, to support local as well, and especially supporting friends if you're not one who raises your own meat, and we don't, or your own protein sources, really. And then to the potatoes. So I didn't peel them. I often don't peel my potatoes for mashed potatoes because my family doesn't mind the skins. I chop those up, put them in some water, and it actually sat on the stove for a while until I was ready to cook it, which is fine because then they don't turn brown because they're immersed in water. So later on, after they cooked up for like 15 to 20 minutes, I just drained out the water, and then you start adding all the good fats. The milk, I had put some butter in. I put sour cream in it before. Salt, garlic powder, some sauteed garlic to throw in there would have been really delicious. And then my little girl had to help me mash it, but it was a lot of work and arm muscle to use, so she didn't last too long in helping me mash it. But good to still have her see what it takes to make mashed potatoes. So yummy mashed potatoes. I opened a can of home canned green beans, and we had our yummy pork roast, green beans, and mashed potatoes. So for the next couple of meals, you will see me use my Instant Pot. I use my Instant Pot probably 2 to 3 times a week. We use it for raw beans to get cooked, or a frozen meat if I don't plan ahead of time, which I tend to, but sometimes it's just nice to have that Instant Pot. So I'm making a chili and using some home grown tomatoes that I had frozen. And you're seeing me here taking the skins off the tomatoes because the texture of skins on tomatoes in a soup is not the best. It gets a little stringy and hard for little kids to eat. So I'm just taking those off, and then after the beans were cooked, draining those, and then I'll end up putting those into my stew mixture of the beef. And of course there was onion in there, the chili powder. I put in maybe a little bit of cumin, and then sometimes I throw in a little bit of extra salsa if I have it in the fridge, and it makes a very hearty, thick chili. It's super easy to make homemade chili. Even store-bought canned tomatoes work great. I threw in a little extra corn I had in the freezer, top it off with some sour cream, cheese, avocado, and serve it up with some chips. So, a cake. It is a yummy time for cake. Spring is in the air, spring is coming, and I feel like banana cake is a spring type dessert. So this was one of my mom's recipes growing up, and I've been sharing some of her recipes that she used to make for us when we were kids, and just substituting like the oleo to butter or coconut oil, and changing the amount of sugar a little bit, because I feel like when my mom grew up, recipes had a lot of extra sugar, more than necessary, especially for banana cake, because bananas are naturally sweet themselves. So a fun banana nut cake, you can omit the nuts if you like, but my family really enjoys having nuts in desserts, so I just had chopped up a mixture of different nuts to add into it as well. And the cake batter came together very beautifully, tasted delicious. I always taste my cake batters, and then poured it into a greased pan. And I didn't actually have a cake pan. You could do it in a 9x13 cake pan. I used a glass pan. You can do it in 2 9x9 circle pans or 2 8x8s if you want to make a layered cake. But I got that in the oven, and then I made up a cream cheese frosting. Cream cheese frostings are amazing to go with these type of cakes. So if you want the full recipe, please go to daviekillian.com to find how to make your banana cake recipe plus the frosting. I shared a pumpkin bar recipe back in the fall that has the same frosting, but so delicious. A yummy treat for the spring season coming up, maybe something for Easter in April when that happens, or just something to try out for your family. And it's kind of like a banana bread, just a banana bread hyped up because it's a little bit sweeter. It's got that yummy frosting on it. You could make it a little more decadent by adding some nuts on top of the frosting, or slicing a few bananas like you see here that you can put on top as well. My final recipe is another soup, and guess what? It's another chili, but it's a white chicken chili. I've probably shared this recipe with you before too, but this whole meal I decided to make in the Instant Pot. So there you saw me drain the Great Northern beans that I had cooked up, and prior to that I cooked a whole chicken in the Instant Pot. And before, I've also made my chicken broth in the Instant Pot. I already had some in the fridge from a previous chicken, so I didn't save the bones for this soup per se to use for chicken broth. But then I used a saute mode and cooked up the onions and garlic, sauteed them in the Instant Pot, and decided to use that home canned broth in there and literally just dumped everything back in. This soup is kind of one of those that once you get it all cooked and prepped, you just dump it and let it simmer to get the beautiful flavors together. And it's a very quick one, and you can use pre-cooked chicken if you wanted. You could use a whole chicken, that way you have more left over for another meal of some sort, or you can use like chicken breast and cook those up too. It's up to you to decide how to make it. And of course, this soup paired really well with some homemade sourdough bread that I had baked in the morning, and I always have sourdough bread on hand, whether fresh or frozen. And we had some company over that night. It was a delicious soup to serve to the family, and my little girl wanted to share that she enjoyed it too.